Okay.
Juan. Hi everybody. Hi Ronnie. How are you doing?
Hi Gail.
You have a very interesting story because you're an Israeli, born, raised.
Yep.
You have family here, friends. Yet you dedicate your life to promote a boycott on the country you were born and raised in order to hurt it financially and politically. So that's weird. So please explain.
It's about bringing about equality, freedom, and justice for all the people of the land. Simple.
Which land? Which land is this?
This land, Israel,
Tel
Palestine.
Aviv? Okay, so let me just talk about that a bit and then you can give maybe your twist.
حضرت الإنجليز وحضرت ذبحة اليهود في الخليل. ذبحة اليهود ذبحوهم أهل الخليل. وأبي والله ذبح وجاب أواعي من عندهم وكسبوها.
أشكرك شكرا لك.
In 1948, after the declaration of the State of Israel, there was a war which we call the War of Independence against Egypt, Iraq also, Jordan, Syria.
Many of the Arab states, who had just recently won independence themselves, declared war on Israel in an effort to establish a unified Arab Palestine where all of British Palestine had been.
It was supposed to be 50-50 according to the 47 partition line. After the war, we got like 77-78% of the land, and a lot of Palestinians, native Palestinians, indigenous as you call them, here in Tel Aviv and in other places, they fled during the war or were chased out, expelled, and then they could not come back.
And to this day, they are denied the right to come back.
Right, and those that are here, they have the citizenship.
It's about being a privileged Israeli Jew, being one from among the privileged group that is fighting against a system that is inherently racist, supremacist, and on and on and on. It is all about, from the very foundation, the State of Israel is about disenfranchising, terrorizing, and subjugating the indigenous people of the land who are not among the select group.
But let's put that into context. 2 years earlier, ended the Second World War. The Jews were exterminated like in the millions. It's not that people, like the way I view it, I don't think they were sitting around, we're gonna take the land. Like, people were suffering from all kinds of PTSDs and all kinds of stuff, and they were paranoid, and they felt that they were right to be paranoid, and they have to take on. People were crazy back then. Like the first generation, of course, it's not, there's nothing healthy in it or like cold manipulation. It's like it was all very raw, and of course the international community felt that
it depends who we're talking about. If we're talking about the Zionist leadership, who were called and manipulative and all of that, or the people who were participating, that's a different story.
No, I don't have to support what happened in 1948 to want to live in peace right now. This is the way that I look at it. Like in 1948, if you were now going back in time, you would rather fight in the armies of Egypt or Iraq or Jordan or Syria than fight in the armies of the Zionists of the new Israeli country. You think that they were in the right by attacking us?
The Zionists, as supremacist settler colonialists, were absolutely in the wrong.
So you would fight in the other army? You think
I
they
don't
were
think
in the
I would
right?
fight in any army.
They were in the right?
Unless, maybe it was, if you ask me about
they
World War II. That would be a tough call.
Okay. But
what
they
would
were
I do then?
you think that they were doing what's right? It was okay for them to come in and kill and expel
The Zionists
to win the
were
war?
very cynical about it. And you know what? Let's go.
Everybody's cynical about
I
it.
told you
They're
that
politicians.
I brought a prop, right?
Okay.
So let me show you that. This guy.
This
Wonderful
guy. Okay.
Okay. You know who he is?
This is like activism right now.
Yes.
Oh, get it off! Don't look.
This guy, his name is Jacob Israel Dahan. Jacob Israel Dahan.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. A Dutch-born author and lawyer and poet. He arrived in Palestine at the time as a Zionist. He managed to organize a meeting with the king of Hijaz, King Abdullah, and he gave his promise that he will allow free access, free immigration for Jews from all over the world into his kingdom, which was later also about to inherit Palestine, actually. Eventually that didn't happen. Free access for Jews into his kingdom to live there as equals.
In a democratic liberal state with
Yes.
a parliament.
I don't know if it was, he was the king, so whatever, but...
Because there's no democracy right now in Jordan.
Hold on, that, you're like...
No, I'm saying like, is this like a utopian society under a king?
I'll tell you
I don't want to live under a king.
For that meeting, some months later, Yaakov Israel Dehan became a martyr. He was assassinated by the Zionist leadership at the time.
Okay.
And there's also rumors that maybe Ben Gurion was in the know. The assassin admitted some decades later, and it was all the top, the leadership.
We're talking about what year?
This, if we don't know what happened there, we can't really understand what Zionism, what the Zionist project is about, and that's why I mentioned it. The Zionists killed the Jew, murdered the Jew, because the Jew managed to secure free immigration for Jews into this region. But as equals, not as Zionists. Not to live here at the expense of other people, but alongside. Okay. And that was such a threat to the Zionists that they decided to assassinate him, and the assassin himself discussed it. He confessed about it, and he explained that that meeting led to the assassination of Dehan.
But I want to know, what is your aim? Okay. You are working to boycott Israel? Why? Okay. What do you hope to achieve?
The BDS campaign, Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions campaign, started in July 2005 by Palestinian civil society. And those organizations represent Palestinians from all three domains of Palestinian society, meaning those who are under military occupation in the West Bank, Gaza, those who are subjugated as second-class citizens here in 48, or what you would call Israel, and those who are in the diaspora, those who have been...
Refugees.
They are calling on the international community to show their solidarity by applying pressure on Israel in order to make it abide by its obligations under international law. And there are three rights, fundamental, absolute rights of the Palestinians that have to be respected. And until such a time that they will be respected, they are calling on the international community to apply pressure. Which are these rights? Number one, ending of the military occupation of 1967, the harsh, brutal occupation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. People who live under that occupation obviously deserve to be free. Secondly, equality for those who are currently second-class citizens here inside
How are they
Israel.
second-class citizens? They can vote for the parliament.
20% of the population here, of the citizens of the state, are not among the privileged group, and therefore I would argue that they are subjugated against in every possible way.
Subjugated?
Yes, both by law and in practice. There are over 50 laws that are racist.
And even outside of these laws, there's like institutionalized racism, as you have in many countries, that the majority, of course...
Yes. Other than by law, obviously, in practice, there's all sorts of forms of racism.
If you send your CV and your name is Muhammad, and if your name is...
if you want to rent an apartment in Tel Aviv, etc., we know these stories.
Okay, let me state my case.
Okay, go ahead.
I am listening to you. It feels to me like I'm having a conversation with a right-winger. You clamp all kinds of different populations together because Israel is so diverse and like nobody likes like the other group, whatever, and like you have ultra-Orthodox and you have religious and you have Mizrahim, you have Ashkenazis, it's so different, Tel Aviv, and say, okay, so you think that we're all in it together, that everybody knows, everybody's in the know, and we were always like making a plan, hatching a plan to do this and to do that. This is exactly the same thing as an Israeli Jew would say, all the Palestinians are the same. And I would say the Palestinian Authority, Fatah, is the same as Hamas, and all the same. And they would give me one person that said this, one person that said that, and the guy in 33, he met with Hitler, blah, 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 just like talking points in order to clump all the Palestinians together and say, this is not serious. These guys are right-wing religious, these guys are secular, these guys are Christian. It's just like, I don't know, it doesn't seem very nuanced.
Okay, let's simplify it. We talked about basic rights. Because the situation is really not complicated. I know that you would like to think of it, the Zionist-Palestinian conflict, as being complicated. It's not. I think that the greatest, success of Israeli propaganda is to convince the world that it is complicated.
No, there was a Second World War, there was a Holocaust, then 3 years later establishing the land of Israel, and you have all this baggage that you carry, and then you add to all, and the Israeli Jews, they're in themselves, they're not homogeneous. They weren't getting along before the Second World War, and then you add Arab Jews, whatever, Mizrahim. It's all this balagan, and then you have Arab countries that don't get along among themselves. And then they don't get along with it. It's so complicated. How can it not be complicated? This is why no one understands what's going on here, because it is so complicated.
Because they feed off Haaretz and the Association for Civil Rights in Israel.
So Haaretz, you think, is a right wing?
Haaretz is the leading tool of propaganda, as far as I'm concerned. Propaganda is left wing. The propaganda is liberal Zionist.
So you agree with the right wing?
The propaganda is thinking that there are two separate entities called Israel and Palestine that somehow exist side by side, rather than realizing that it is not like this, it's like that. This is a state that was founded for, rather than a master race, a master ethnicity, if you like. This conflation between Judaism and Zionism. I am a staunch anti-Zionist. I'm not anti-Semitic. Actually, no one that I know that is anti-Zionist is anti-Semitic. On the contrary, we oppose all forms of racism, including anti-Semitism and including Zionism. Zionism is racist to the core.
The late 19th century was the golden age of nationalism in Europe. And in that hyper-nationalistic empire lived a Jewish journalist named Theodor Herzl, who had hoped that Jews could assimilate into European nations, but soon became convinced that the Jewish people needed to leave Europe and settle in their own state. The concept of Jewish nationalism came to be known as Zionism.
Many believed a Jewish state was their only way of safety and saw their historic homeland in the Middle East as their best hope for establishing it.
Okay, I don't live here for a reason. I left Palestine/Israel, I refer to it usually as Palestine, a couple of years ago. The BDS campaign is such a threat to Israel. You know, Israel is terrified of these three letters in English.
Who is Israel?
Israel. You know that there's a whole
9 million people here.
There is a whole ministry. Okay, the government, all Israeli governments, with no exception, are terrified.
You're not talking about the people. You're talking about the government.
The acting government and the previous one and the future ones, they are terrified of the notion of what BDS stands for. Rather than only speaking about the occupation of 1967.
And then in 1967, Israel and several Arab states went to war again. Israel won and then gained control over the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. So the 1947 proposal looked like this. By 1967, things looked like this.
Look, I'm not concerned about that type of discourse, about settlements and so on. That's not the issue.
So you're not worried about that? That's not your thing.
That's a symptom of the disease, not more than that. It's not even the main issue.
So you're not for two states?
The BDS campaign, since it demands these three fundamental rights that we said: ending of the occupation, equality for those who are second-class citizens, and the rights of the refugees.
Okay,
the rights of those who have been expelled from here to go back to their
come back. You want them all to come back?
It's their right. It's not about me, what I want. I'm outside of the equation here. It is their right. They are indigenous people to this land.
Where would they go? Come to Dekel Popopok. This was mine 70 years ago.
Okay, now you see, you're already transitioning to into the how are we going to implement it, which is good. Okay, if you already accept the right, then we can talk about how to implement it.
No, I'm saying that it's not feasible. It's just not feasible pragmatically.
Okay. First of all, they have inalienable rights.
My family suffered from injustices. So does that mean that I can go back to some guy and knock on his door and say this was mine 8 years ago? No, it should happen. So you have like other refugees here, so just kick people out.
But other than that, also from the moral standpoint.
Okay, so it's a moral issue, or
for me, obviously, it's a moral issue.
For me, it's pragmatic. The decision. I'm looking here pragmatically. A one state. This seems to me like a Syria, Iraq kind of way. I see blood flowing in the streets. I see tribes fighting against tribes. I see destruction. I see myself hopping on a plane and getting off out of here. And of course, a two-state solution where we get 77% or 78% and they get 22, 23. Of course, it's unjust in some way. Okay, but practically, this would be the best solution for the biggest amount of people, because most people in Palestine will be happy They will be content when, like, they will have celebrations, there will be propaganda.
serious?
You have, but even Hamas said that they would accept 67 lines,
so let's talk about that.
They will be happy the moment they sign a deal. There will be propaganda from A to Z to tell the people and celebration and stuff. So for me, it's like, pragmatically, it's the best decision. But your choice is a moral choice, what you said. It's not a pragmatic choice.
So let's talk about that. The BDS campaign doesn't take a solution-based approach. It takes a rights-based approach. There are three fundamental rights.
Why
how
did
is
you
it going
choose
to
the
be
right-based?
how is it going to be implemented? That is secondary.
Why?
And this is why the BDS campaign is so scary for Israel, because it is not about, it doesn't fall into the trap of liberal Zionist discourse about what type of a solution we want and how do we carve out this land that, you know...
Because everybody in the liberal camp agrees that it's a two-state solution according to the 67 lines with minor modifications agreed, blah, 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 blah.
Not really. Most
left-wingers agree about that.
It can be done in one state, it can be done in two states, it can be done in 5 states. If you want to do it in 2 states, go for it, fine. But both states will have to respect all 3 rights of Palestinian people. There will also need to be a democracy here. There will also need to be equal rights and the rights of the refugees here in this land. So
you want, like, just
it's
to
not
understand.
what I want.
No, what you are saying, the 2 states, Palestine and Israel, and the refugees from 1948 who left what is now Israel, they will go back to Israel, like 5 million of them?
6 million, yeah.
6 million, so 6 million will add to the 8-9 million.
The situation is, the Zionist-Palestinian conflict is between, if you can call it a conflict, is between...
תענה לשאלה שלי,
I will answer.
אני אומר לך, זה לא יוצא טוב. תענה ישר, א', ב', בום.
Okay, you want me to respond to how many people will live where?
According to your plan.
And what I'm saying is that the notion, you're actually basically playing with me here a game of demographics. And I refuse to play...
pragmatism.
No, you're talking about demographics. How many of us versus how many of them? I refuse to have this discussion.
No, but we'll have like 13 million people
I see
here.
it as being inherently racist.
Why?
Because
if you double the number of population in a small country, that's a problem, no matter what are the demographics.
Okay, you're talking about practicalities? Fine. Let's talk about practicalities. If you say, for example, that there will not be enough employment, there will not be enough infrastructure.
Yes.
That's a valid argument. Let's talk about that. That's the second. As I said, how is it going to be implemented? We can discuss. We can discuss whether they will come by trains or by planes.
No, we don't have room for them. It's so tiny. It's akin to the end of Israel, economically.
No. It's akin to the end of Israel according to Zionists, because for them they will lose their cherished Jewish majority, which is maintained at the expense of the indigenous people of the land, and for them, this is the heart and soul. Pretty much every Zionist, especially the liberal Zionists among them.
It's important to keep in mind that most Zionists were secular Jews, so they imagined Israel as a state for Jews more than a Jewish state.
Not only taking over the land, using, abusing, whatever, the people and the resources, etc. Also, in addition to all of that, inherent to all of that is the notion of exclusivity. That this place is ours and only ours. Here.
Really?
Yes.
What
absolutely.
about all the early settlers, whatever you want to call them, who were dressed as Arabs and who admired the Arabs and wanted to live like the Arabs?
There were those.
They didn't look down on them.
First of all, it was created by literally driving away the indigenous people from the land in order to create...
In a war?
What you would call a war.
There wasn't a war in 48?
And the Zionists, when they realized that they have enough military power, both to kick out, to drive away the indigenous people from here, and also to fend off whoever will come to oppose that, then they went into war.
But after
the Declaration of Independence was done.
אני צריך הפסקת ג'וינט. כן, קשוח. גם אני חשבתי, אמרתי לך, זה סרטון הראשון שאני עושה אי פעם, שיש בו, בבסיס שלו יש איזשהו עימות.
כן.
כי זה תמיד, התפקיד שלי זה כאילו להוציא מהבן אדם השני את
הנחמדות.
כן, אני כאילו גם הטמבל, מה אתה...
You see, the problem is not the partition plan in itself. The problem is that those who founded this state insisted to have what they call a Jewish and democratic state. Now, this is not a logical term.
Right, it's a problem till today, okay.
Okay, either you have democracy or you don't have democracy. Either there's equality or there isn't equality.
Okay.
But what it meant for them back then, and what it means for them to this day, is that if we have our kind of population, the select group, if we have our kind of population, then we can claim we're a democracy. During the recent massacres in Gaza in 2008, 2009, and then later in 2014, 95% of Israeli society, we know we never count the 20% others. When we say Israelis, we never count 20% of the population.
Right, but when you say we,
exclusive society.
But you say we, who is we? Everybody?
When we say Israelis,
like we texted each other and said, I don't count them on the poll.
That's among the apartheid people, they are diverse.
Are all the Palestinians the same?
No.
Are all Palestinians? So they are diverse. They can have a range of opinions, and they can have a range of responsibility for bad things that their representatives are doing.
Yeah.
But I bear like all the responsibility, even though I protest against it.
Look, do you protest against Zionism? Are you a anti-Zionist?
I don't know what Zionism is.
So you're not protesting the wrongdoing.
I don't know what Zionism is.
Some element, you know.
No,
oh yeah,
I don't know what Zionism is.
I don't like that Bibi is corrupt. Great.
I just don't know what Zionism is, so I can't be anti
so that's what we're here to talk
or
about.
whatever.
That's
no,
what
this is like your interpretation. I will talk to 100 people. They will say 100 different things. But you want to go to them all and say you all believe in the same thing. You are all similar. You can be ultra-Orthodox. You can be religious. You can be from the kibbutz. You can be an activist against the government, against corruption, but you are all
I won't tell the
same.
audience that Gil told me that this is going to be like a kind of a calm discussion.
I wanted it to be, but you started it. sorry. Okay.
No, it's okay.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, but you דיברת הרבה, נתתי לך לדבר מלא.
No, it's fine. I know that I'm triggering some things here.
Okay, תסתכלו מהצד, אני לא נותן לו מספיק מקום.
95% of the Israeli population supported the massacre of Gaza in 2008-2009. The same number also supported the massacre in 2014.
Okay? And they didn't call it massacre. I was among the 5%.
Great, I'm happy you were.
I think it was 90. I don't think it was 95.
The number, there was
right,
a high,
but they
high
didn't
support
the massacre. What they were saying, you could say that they are wrong.
From the same poll, I can quote that only 3 to 4% actually thought. In 2014, only thought that Israel was using excessive force in Gaza. You know when they said that? When Israel was bombing 17 hospitals and demolishing 8 of them.
Right. I was working on the news during one of those wars. People watching the news could not know what was going on. You know what? People were working in the news department. I was working in the foreign news department, so I had to watch all the foreign channels. So I felt like I was a crazy person. Nobody knows what's going on, even the people working in the thing.
The only way not to know is because there is such psychological barrier.
No, they wouldn't show it on TV.
It's not true.
I worked there. I told them why I would show it.
No, maybe they didn't show it on Zionist media.
Okay, but what were people watching?
Look.
What are people watching here? They watch Channel 10. They don't watch Al Jazeera.
The horrible crimes that Israel was performing in Gaza in 2009 and 2014 and so on were evident. The fact that in the Israeli press, the Israeli media and so on, they didn't report about it in the same way, they try to equate, that tells you something about Israeli media. We do everything in the public. Our forte, our strength is doing things publicly. And Palestine became the thing to do if you're on a US campus, just like not too long ago, after 30 years of very difficult BDS campaigning against the former case of apartheid in South Africa, eventually this became mainstream and all the countries of the world were boycotting South Africa, and this was the thing to do in the UK and the US, etc. People can tell you about their experiences there. And Israel was arming South Africa to its teeth.
Because we didn't have any, this was like the only buddy we could have, like a racist country.
Israel is in bed with all the worst dictatorships in the world. There's
like the Saudi dictatorship.
Yeah.
That's a horrible dictatorship.
Yes.
And
the representative of South Sudan was just here now.
And who's boycotting them? Do you support boycotting Saudis?
Absolutely. Do you think
who
Israel
is
not?
that?
You see, Israel is a pariah state and should be treated as such. Is it the only state that is
the worst
that is
state?
acting in violation of?
Is it the worst state in your eyes?
It's really difficult to say. No, obviously the U.S. does far worse things than Israel, for
And
example.
who's boycotting
you
the
know,
US?
Martin Luther King said that the U.S. is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, or terror in the world.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean,
And
I
who is
could
boycotting
agree
the
with that,
US?
of course.
Are you boycotting the U.S.?
There is no concerted effort. There is no call in order to boycott
Why?
the U.S. It's not
Why?
feasible, and so on.
So it's a pragmatic
those.
decision. Okay, so it's a moral issue, or
For me,
it's a
obviously, it's a
pragmatic
moral issue. And it is up to us to choose whether we heed the call of those who have been oppressed and subjugated for 7 decades or more, especially so if we are those who stand to benefit from the hardships of others.
I don't benefit from that at all.
Actually,
Come on.
you do in one way or another.
I would love for this conflict to end. I would love for it to end.
I asked you, are you an anti-Zionist? No, you're not. I mean,
I don't know what it is. So because everybody has a different definition, so I don't feel like I have to define myself according to what other people say. The liberals, left-wingers that I know, they don't sound to me like what you're saying. And also the right-wingers, I would say that if you take 100 right-wingers and you ask them what do you propose, they would give 100 different solutions. I think that the right wing is it's a non-entity. Half of them would agree to 2 states under 67 if someone that they trust will tell them that this is a good option. Just like people, they don't really care. They care about their own shit. You can push them to do some good things, and you can push them to just block them and just go on with their lives, just not caring about a lot of stuff that not only the Palestinians don't care about. And it's not only in Israel, it's everywhere in the world. Just people, most people
are not evil. Most people are ignorant.
Of course.
You know that Israel doesn't have a constitution for a very good reason. If there was a constitution, there wouldn't be Zionism. If there was a constitution, it would have to safeguard the rights of all the people of the land. Therefore,
but the left wing here wants a constitution. Okay. Whatever.
No Zionists that I know wants a constitution, but anyway.
I know many of them who work very hard for it. They have even like an NGO thing and stuff like that. Whatever.
We'll go back to that. The same
no, we won't.
Go forward.
We only go forward. Go forward.
The ones who speak the language of lies. So they speak about
already. Come on, Oni, come on.
Okay,
come on.
Okay, that's the most wonderful thing about it.
We have to go. It's like we've been fighting for 2 hours now. 2 hours. Okay, and you have another interview coming up right here. So this is also kind of cool. Okay, so thanks, Oni. I hope I wasn't too harsh on you. I told you that I was going to be nice. Maybe I was not as nice as I wanted to be. No, it was okay?
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.